So it's been a hot minute since we discussed Bunny Girl Senpai on the channel. I think it's been close to a year, if not a year, because, well, I don't live in Japan, I don't speak Japanese, we gotta wait for those subtitles, and I'm not just gonna watch any and whatever subtitles out there, I'm gonna wait for the official ones, and it was worth the wait, I have to say. This was easily the best Bunny Girl arc to date. I heard a lot of people say as much before basically it was even released. It was just announced that it was getting a movie. A lot of people saying this will be the best arc of Bunny Girl, and I am so glad it was a movie because if this would have been 4 episodes, I would have pulled my hair out. This was the first time I actually think I've ever done this, and if it's happened before, it's been a very long time, years. I let out a "what the," and I paused. I paused and I walked away, got a cup of coffee, I regrouped, and then I resumed. And it was hard not to skim the movie because I was furious. Not because the movie was bad, but because they did something I did not want to see happen. And I was just like, you know what? Bunny Girl is doing something here. And I love this movie. Obviously, I'm going to be going into spoilers here. I probably shouldn't have to say that, but just to avoid anyone being like, Brandon, I just wanted to hear your opinion on the movie. No, we're going into it, same as any episode review, because how else am I going to discuss this, right? This movie was top tier. It was emotional. There was a lot of crying throughout this movie, from Mai to Sakta to Shoko. Everyone was crying in this damn movie, and it was hard not to get a little emotional yourself. And what I love is how there's been a lot with Bunny Girl that, you know, I've wanted to know more of, especially with, like, the whole scar on Sakta's chest, and obviously this weird girl who you kept seeing as a child, and then she was more or less a teenager, the same age as the rest, and there was a lot I wanted to see, and this whole Dreaming Girl movie was top tier, 10 out of 10 in a lot of ways for me. I love how so many things tied together, especially with probably my favorite twist, ignoring Car coming in and just ruining everyone's life. I love the idea that the reason the scar was there and it would start opening up more and more was the fact that Sakta originally was going to give Shoko his heart so that she would be able to get her heart transplant, and like every time the future version came in closer, it started opening up the wound more and more because there shouldn't be 2 of the same hearts there. I was like, that is so cool and that is so brutal on the process, which I absolutely love. I definitely can say I was not expecting it, and I'm surprised I was not spoiled about the Car death. I get spoiled a lot, but it doesn't bother me because mainly I just keep my comment section spoiler free because I want people to be able to interact with my comments and not be, you know, upset that someone was being a douchebag about it. For me, if I get spoiled, it doesn't ruin my enjoyment. I just won't theorize on things I've clearly been spoiled on. I'll just ignore it until it actually pops up. But I was shocked that for a year I haven't been spoiled that Mai was gonna get hit by a car and die. I was not expecting that, and man, my reaction probably woke the neighbors. I mean, pretty furious, I'm not gonna lie. I was pretty confident she wasn't gonna stay dead. I was like, we got 40 minutes left in this movie, there's no way they're going this direction. But I definitely wasn't expecting a happy ending, so to my surprise when we did get one, it was a blessing in disguise is how I'd put it. I really appreciate how we have this girl who I just immediately was getting red flags for, and just the idea that she was disappearing and then you get the older version. There was a lot of uncertainty, which Bunny Girl has always been great at, is the uncertainty of not knowing exactly what the puberty syndrome was and what exactly was going to be the end result. But once you start realizing how sickly she is and seeing how, you know, every time Sakta would come in to visit her, she would hide her arm with the needle in it because she didn't want to seem frail and ill. And just the more you watched of a sickly girl, the more my mind started racing. I was like, wait a minute. Are they going to go the route of just like, are they gonna Anohana me? Are they gonna kill a character and have this like tragic goodbye? Like, what are they building up to? And I honestly did not see the heart transplant coming. I mean, it started to immediately make sense and my mind was like, oh, how did I not see that coming? The foreshadowing was there with the scar all along. But the fact that they kept your focus so much on Sakta was like the best directing choice that this movie had going for it. Because I highly doubt, unless you've been spoiled, you could predict that Mai would be the one to shove him out of the way in that moment. Because, yes, you can say, obviously Mai loves Sakta, you can maybe even argue more than Sakta loves Mai, which is saying a hell of a lot, but at the end of the day, the way they direct it is they really kept the focus on one thing, so that you wouldn't really predict that Mai would push him out of the way, and that was like the most brutal directing choice in recent memory. To kill off everyone's like favorite female character of like 2018, and just to see the blood on the road and the heartbreak that happened afterwards was just cruel. But I love it. Hate it because that cruelty added to such emotion, and to really see how broken Sakta became and just everything that happened afterwards. The amount of just body language that radiated despair is top tier, and I've talked about it plenty with my reviews and my full review for Bunny Girl Senpai, the TV anime, is that the body language in Bunny Girl Senpai is almost second to none. The amount of emotion that radiates off these characters, from sorrow to the shaking to just the shivers, right? These real human body language, which is very minuscule in the actual real world. If you were to look at someone upset, there's a lot of cues that is very hard to detail in anime. But with the amount of torture that these three went through over this movie, it felt like real characters. It felt like real people in the real world, with the amount of shaking, the amount of torture, the bags under their eyes. It just felt like absolute hell and madness. And they upped their game from the TV anime, which is saying a lot because the body language was already some of the best I've seen in anime, but done in a movie format, it was even better. It just blew me away, and it made me so damn depressed. I really did like the idea of time travel in this, though. I have to say, time travel isn't done all that well in anime. There's only a handful that have actually done it pretty well. But the idea of how they were able to overcome such an impossible hurdle, and how there was, the future version and the younger version, and what actually was going on all this time, and how it kind of tied into the Dreaming Girl name, I thought was actually pretty interesting, especially because it ties back to one of my favorite parts of Bunny Girl, is like the idea of existence, where you had Mai, who most people just couldn't see her. That's why she would wear a bunny girl suit, just to see if anyone would see her absurdity. And to have Sakta have to do that same thing after he was basically going back to hopefully stop Mai from getting brutally killed, and just needing to have anyone just confirm his existence, and then how that eventually just led to such a tragic goodbye. It was brutally fantastic is how I'd put it. I really appreciate how it felt so vulnerable. In a lot of ways, I'd say it was the most vulnerable we've seen in this series to date, and that's saying a hell of a lot, because there's been a lot of vulnerability shown from all these characters, but to see a character like Sakta really almost giving up, which he's usually the beacon. He's had his moments, but to just see him nearly give up and just be completely destroyed, and just how both him and Mai kind of just made their decision as if they were both going to give their life for the other. But once you have a future version, even if it's only 4 days in the future, saying, no, I'm going to let her die, it's so hard. It's so painful, because the idea of, you're fine giving your life up for this girl, but then you realize what that's going to do to her. So she tries to give up her life for you, and then she realizes what that did to you. And then you come to a point where you realize you have to let a little girl die, because neither one of you is brave enough to give up your life for the other. And it kind of just shows how much love is actually there, is like everything that represents Bunny Girl. And of course I knew at that point, I was like, there's no way she's just gonna die. I really had a suspicion they would find some way, especially with the introduction of some form of time travel. I thought it was actually very sweet, very perfect way to kind of conclude the movie, with the idea of just this little girl who was so scared of her future, who never filled out her little homework of what she wanted to do and be in the future, to be able to have her actually fill it out back in the day and have that change the events, but abandoning everything that you've had happen to you up to that point is totally in Bunny Girl's fashion. The whole system of just literally trusting in each other and fate enough that even if you were to restart and redo everything, all the love, you believe in one another enough that you would find each other again. I was worried, I'll be honest. I thought they were going to leave me off on a cliffhanger waiting for a season 2. I thought it was just going to be we would see him confess his love, or maybe just bump into her and she wouldn't recognize him or something. I thought that's how the movie was going to end, I'll be honest. But to actually see how it kind of did come back together and everyone was actually happy, I was good at that point. I was like, you know what? If you want to leave it open-ended and not really know her future, I'd be totally fine with that. But I'll be honest, I've seen some people argue whether we needed that final moment of just Sakta recognizing her, but I wanted that moment. I didn't know I wanted that moment until we got it, but still, it felt as if it was the closing pages of just, even though it is a 1 in a billion chance that this could happen, it's okay to have that 1 in a billion chance, right? If we're going to introduce time travel, there's got to be one time where everything could work out a-okay. And whether people want to say it's convenience or not, I don't care. It was emotional and it was well written, in my honest opinion. I just felt like everything about this, it represented the best of Bunny Girl, both the simple, the funny, the cute, and the more painful. In fact, the most painful. I love just having some familiarity in the intro, just having Buta just just the amount of time she insulted him, as if, why not just play both sides and just be an absolute sleazeball, as basically he has his girlfriend and now new female roommate living in together with him. Just the amount of banter, the amount of jealousy and rage coming off of our main girl. It was amazing. It was wholesomely adorable, and I thought was the perfect way to set it up, because that big punchline didn't come until about the halfway mark. So it really did set the stage into what this story was going to be, while also giving you enough familiarity to just really ease you in. So when that big moment arrives and you see the carnage, I was not expecting it. At least I wasn't expecting it to be her, and then just everything that happens afterwards. Like, if this would have been a 4-episode arc in a season 2, holy shit would I have been pissed. And I don't get pissed off at cliffhangers. I love cliffhangers. I think they're such a great way to get you excited for the next episode, but I think I would have been fuming. I think if this would have been like the conclusion of episode 2 and I would have waited a week, or they would have announced a delay or something like that, holy shit, that would have been painful. And I guarantee you I would have been spoiled at that point in time. But I guess because we had such a long break, I guess less people were trying to be enthusiastic about dropping info. I just really appreciate Bunny Girl's movie. I feel like the quality, when you compare it to the TV anime, it's very similar, but there is some slight differences that elevate the quality overall. Like, the overall art design, the overall animation is pretty similar to a lot of the emotional moments in the TV series, but there's less visual inconsistencies, which even with the TV anime, there wasn't too many. But of course, there's, like with any TV production, there's going to be some missteps that you obviously can't avoid. Sometimes you can touch it up with your Blu-ray release, but still, in this movie, you pretty much couldn't point out too many moments that you would say are underwhelming, and added together with the elevation of just the amount of body language and emotion coming off these characters, it was pretty much the best Bunny Girl has ever been, and I really hope we do get a season 2, I have to say. Like, I know there is still more arcs going and there's still more being made, so I definitely would expect at some point we'll get a season 2, I imagine. Like, I can understand why they wanted to do a movie for this, because they most likely couldn't just do a full season of an anime right off the bat. They probably had to wait a little bit, but also, when you kind of look at the quality and just the story being told here, you wanted that to be a movie. You didn't really want to break that up in episodic fashion. You wanted to give basically everyone their time to decompress, rage, and feel okay all in the matter of an hour and a half in a movie fashion. And I heard a lot of people, I guess, were like screaming at the theaters at certain moments in this movie, and I didn't know what the hell that meant when I was seeing it like on Twitter and things like that, but I can understand. I just imagine theaters in Japan had just this audible rage just radiating when they saw Best Girl get hit by a car. They'd be like, no, it's time to rewind. We can't do this. This was pretty much everything and more that I wanted from this movie. Like, I'll be honest, I haven't really been thinking about the movie since it pretty much has been confirmed, because I knew, like, movies come out like a year after they're pretty much released in Japan. Like, you gotta wait for good subtitles, you gotta wait for good fan subs, and if you have to wait for good fan subs, it's even longer of a wait. But a popular series like this, I was pretty confident that, sooner rather than later. I was actually expecting like 9 months for this. A year later, we finally got into this, and I really am glad I didn't really go in with expectations in the same way I would have if I would have been hyping this up for a year. Like, even if I was hyping this up for a year, I would have come out of this movie loving it. But I love Bunny Girl Senpai. It's one of my favorite anime. However, just kind of doing my own thing, watching other anime, and then realizing, oh shit, fan subs are starting to come out. I was getting excited. That means, like Aniplex and all these other studios will probably release subtitles very soon, and then a week later I get to experience it and just be completely mesmerized and just re-kick that love I felt when I first realized that Bunny Girl Senpai was something special. Everything about this was so good, and the amount of emotional ranges coming from the actors. The voice acting, who am I kidding, has always been top tier. Two of my favorite voice actors for our two main leads here. However, to just kill and torture and break and just realize that you have to give up your life and then trying to give up yours for another, and it's just this ball of chaos. This was their best voice acting in the series to date, and that's saying a hell of a lot. Like, it just feels like every level of the production, from the music, the voice acting, to the animation, the art design, it just felt like it was all top tier. But best of all, the story made logical sense for the context of Bunny Girl Senpai. This is a story that kind of revolves around time travel and dreams and confirming existence. It plays on familiar ideas of past story arcs, but also doing something completely different. And by the time it wraps up, it feels like even if it was a 1 in a billion chance, having that happy conclusion was the optimal way to end this movie, at least for someone like myself. I thought it was goddamn exceptional, and I hope to see more Bunny Girl Senpai in the future. This was a really, really great movie. It made me laugh, it made me tear up, it made me really mad, but at the end of the day, it was everything that I wanted from this movie, especially if you're gonna bring up such an important character who's clearly an important aspect to the story as a whole, give me something satisfying, and they completely blew me away. For anyone who has any thoughts on this movie, whether you recently watched it or it's been a while and you just have some feelings that you want to drop in the comments, do let me know down below. Be sure to leave a like if you did enjoy. Remember to hit that subscribe button if you have been new. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.